Well, just two old guys talking sports who've been around the valley for a while. Brad Cesmat, you've been around the valley. You've watched Arizona high school football explode here, built a business out of it. It's a lifestyle. As we look at Arizona high school football headed into 2024, how would you describe what has happened here in the last 10 years?
Well, Mark, I think it's just the overall boom of, let's just start with media, social media. There's people on the sidelines with these that have no business being on the sideline. They're runners for agents. They're the front ends of NIL groups, and that's starting to happen now in high school games. And that's concerning. And that's the direction, though, that we're going. And you're not going to be able to close that off. I think that there's a top-heavy portion. You can always say every year there's like 10, 12 teams that you look at. And I tend to go, and I think you're in the same boat, I tend to tell my team, please go to the ones that get no attention early in the year, because we know where you're going to be in mid to late October through December. So let's give some of these schools that don't get the opportunity some exposure. Kids' memories are made. They get excited if Mark McClune shows up on a sideline. They get excited if Brad Cesmat shows up on a sideline, or Cody Cameron, who you had on last week, or Julia or Nick or whoever. They get excited. And so for us just to be exclusive to the same 12, 14 schools, I'm not about that. I love to see the growth, and I love to see the wealth spread around. And the quality of football, sure, it's on par with the rest of the country, but I'm not big on that conversation, that talking point. I just go out and I watch. I watch Deuce Robinson kill it at Pinnacle, and now Deuce is on the field over at USC with Jacoby Lane, two Valley kids who got the job done. Brock Purdy was an under-recruited quarterback. You know that story. Here's a kid at the National Football Foundation event that comes up to me afterwards and says, "What community college should I go to, Mr. Cesmat? I have no offers." And now he's quarterbacking the San Francisco 49ers. So if you go out on a Friday night and you take it all in, and then Saturday you end up on the sideline or a press box at a college game, and then Sunday you have the NFL, that's a great weekend. That's just a great weekend.
Is Brock Purdy's story the best story in Arizona high school football history?
I think if you were to just look at where he was, and what people don't remember about Brock is when he came up to me at that event, I was the MC of that event. It was him and Tyler Shuck together. They had their little tuxedos on. You've seen that event. And for Brock to ask that question, he said, "Can I talk to you for a moment off to the side?" And I hugged him, Mark. I literally hugged him, because I usually get crazy parent or crazy kid, or I'm being slept on, or look at the number of my followers and I don't care. What is your GPA? What is your life story all about? Because football is going to be gone for most of you by the time you're in your early to mid 20s. And so Brock's story, when you look at what happened with Brock, his junior year, spring football, he's out playing paintball with his buddies, gets a cactus in his throwing hand. No spring ball. Second game in his high school senior year, mono. Mono's bad. I don't know if you had mono, Mark. It's terrible. So he was under-recruited. People didn't even know he was there. And when you look at it from that lens, sure, it would have to go down as one of the most remarkable, amazing storybook movie endings that we've seen.
What stories are you watching as we kicked off, the season last week, and we head into, officially, I guess you could officially call this week one this week?
Sure. I think if you look at the Chandler Unified School District, let's just start there. They've been the power shifted over to the west side, where it's Centennial and it's Liberty and others on the west side of town. What I see out of CUSD is you have Chris McDonald over at Basha. He's fully loaded. I was on the sideline at Hamilton Centennial the other night, last Thursday night, and very impressed with both those schools. Both those schools should be playing maybe one another again in late November, maybe even in the championship game. I felt like last weekend, the opening weekend, I was out with Brock's dad, Sean Purdy, on the sideline at Perry. Perry's got a young quarterback, Adam Snyder's kid, he's terrific. And so the quality of football around the Valley is what I'm looking at. Jason Jewell over at Brophy, is he about ready to break through? A remarkable ending against Williamsfield to start out week one, with Fitz's kid catching the winning touchdown. On the smaller school side, you always have to look at what goes on up on the rim, or you have to look at what goes on out with Yuma Catholic. There's always a good story in small town Americana football. I love doing the Blue Ridge Sholo story. I love going up to the White Mountains and seeing the football on a Friday night. It's so different up there, Mark. So, for me, it's not, hey, go around the corner and go see Castile play or Higley play. That stuff's easy. It's more fun to go out and go into the small parts of the state, not just in Maricopa County, and to see what goes on up at Sedona playing against Bradshaw Mountain. Stuff that just doesn't really move the needle if we're talking about big interest, but in those little communities, that is huge.
Does Centennial bounce back this week?
Centennial, I think Richard Taylor's team, Mark, if you look at Centennial every year, they get better as the season progresses. And so when it gets to, I'm not even looking at this week, I'm looking more at when Centennial plays Liberty, okay? When it's the end of the year, and when those two schools line up from one another, let's just see what we have here. Because you've been on that sideline. There are trees. The moon gets blocked out. Those kids are huge. I'm 6'8", but I am not a chiseled 300 pounds like those dudes. So, both sides of the line, when those two big, I don't want to use the term big uglies that they used to use. John Madden used that. But when the big boys get going after it, I think Centennial is always going to be there.
East versus West. That is the kind of early season fun, I guess, talking point to have in the media here. With Liberty winning the state championship last year, does the West Side currently rule Arizona high school football?
Well, before the Carters left Desert Edge, you'd have to say that Desert Edge was moving in that direction. And when Mark and Marcus left, and we wish them well, Desert Edge took a step back last week. I think it's a fun little talking point. It brings clicks, it brings headlines, but at the end of the day, it's the quality of football. What I saw, I'll just use Centennial Hamilton last week. Hamilton is smaller than Centennial. Hamilton is quicker, faster than Centennial at certain positions, in my opinion. Basha, I saw them against his school out Millard from Nebraska. Basha has so much speed. So I didn't see as many big dudes as I've usually seen in the East Valley in week one. And having seen Centennial up close, yeah, they got a bunch of monsters on that side, on both sides of the football. So the power, the strength of schedule and all that stuff, it'll be left on the field. You and I can talk about it, but I don't feel like if I drive to the west side, I'm going to see any better football overall than I see over on the east side. Rick Garrettson is sitting over there quietly at Chandler just doing his thing for another year. People are like, when's Rick Garrettson going to retire? Well, Rick's just going to go do his thing. And he's going to produce players that go on to college. Eddie Zuby over at Higley, he just puts out a team every year that wins at a smaller level. It's not always about the open, Mark. The open sounds great. It sounds sexy. I don't like it when I hear from coaches, well, if we don't make the open, it's a failed season. Guess what? That's something you want to say as a 35, 45, 55, 65-year-old coach, but you can't tell that to the 17, 18, 19-year-old, whatever. You can't tell a kid that, yeah, it was failed season when they're in their high school years. You know this. High school years are the best years of your life. It only gets more difficult as you go older. So if you're a sophomore in high school, oh, it's a terrible season. Oh, you won 5A. It's a runner-up. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's elitist, and we're better than that.
How much have you seen the sport of high school football grow in Arizona since you first came to town?
Well, we shot it in black and white and put it on the Stagecoach, and that was in the days where your esteemed photographer John Gustafson was one of the Beatles back then, because he'd show up with a camera and be on the sidelines. And I love Gus, but I think the media. Growing of the media, let's just take what you do on Friday nights. Even when I was at 3 on Friday nights, before there, Gil was there, and it was skylights, and then it turned into headlights. And then there's other high school shows that have come and gone, and there's some that are still here. I think our industry has figured out, and this is one reason why I punched my ticket in getting out of some of the media places I've been in. Not at 3, it was me wanting to open this. But I would run into managers, general managers that would say, nobody cares about that stuff. Just go get a couple highlights. Only people that watch that stuff or listen to that stuff are the parents. And that's just flat wrong. And so I think our industry has matured somewhat. They've seen that rights fees for pro sports are through the roof. College is part of it. It'd be nice if the college wasn't in trouble with the NCAA or being thrown in jail, or as I like to say, ASU stands for Always Something University. Like, it's always something, guys. Get out of your way. And I think they're on the right track. High school is much more than just boys football. Look at girls flag. Look at, if I would have told you 5 years ago, hey man, girls flag is going to be a thing, I think you would have even been like, yeah, we'll see. Well, now it's a thing. And so the growth of it isn't even just with the boys or the girls. We're traveling out of state. I remember when Hamilton went over to Ireland to play a game years and years and years ago, and people were like, ooh, they're so cool. And now everybody's traveling. Last weekend, Mountain View was out in San Diego playing against El Camino. Perry's out in San Diego this weekend against Granite Hills. I remember a few years back when Mater Dei rolled into Centennial and put up 70, I think it was, on them. Bishop Gorman comes down here and is, ooh, they're just high school teams. That's it. I think what's changed, the recruiting part of it has turned into ugliness. The transfer stuff is always going to be there. There's already kids and parents that are sitting in the stands. When I go speak, Mark, to high schools, I spoke to a couple of high school coaches in their booster clubs last few weeks. When you're a freshman parent, you're all excited. Man, look at my son is on the team. You're a sophomore parent, it's, yeah, he's good. That kid in front of him on JV or varsity, oh, my kid's better than him. I'm not going to go in the snack bar and sell popcorn. Come on, I'm here to watch my boy. Junior year, they're really not doing enough to get my kid recruited. By senior year, it's like, this place is terrible. And it happens over and over and over. So when I go speak to parents and booster clubs, and this is not going to get me any invites, but it's fine. They know what they're getting, because I'll walk in, go up on stage. I was in front of 200 parents and start out with, most of you are crazy. Most of you are nuts. You're going to argue over what kind of popcorn you're selling in the concession stand, which actually happened one time when I was on a booster club. They were arguing, that school down the street has better popcorn in their snack bar than we do. Ooh. And they were the worst parents around town. The media knew this school had the worst of the worst parents. And I told them that. They didn't like it. Finally, a lot of those people moved on. But what's changed, I think, is the expectation. You're going to go boo referees. You're really going to go after referees in the parking lot. There's a shortage of referees. And I'm watching some refs the other night that are north of 70 that are out there trying to just get their little bit of stipend and stay in shape. We have girls flag, boys tackle. So during the week, we don't have enough referees. That's changed. David Hines probably has the most impossible job in the world right now because he's got crazy parent expectations. And yeah, I need a hardship because, and then you hear the reason and it's, okay, you just are trying to find a way to get out, and the transfer portal will swing wide open in week 5. And by the time the season ends, they'll say goodbye to their friends at one high school at Christmas break, and then they'll start a new school in January, and it's rinse repeat.
So is all of this healthy?
Oh, I think sports is healthy. You played football. So you know the benefits of football. You have to work together as a team. I know for me, in being in sports, if I have somebody on my team now that is not a good teammate, who makes it about themselves, who thinks they're above everybody else, they're fired. They're gone. That's not how it works in sports. It's not how it works in business. Can't have it be all about you. And the best teams, the ones that come together, if it's, hey man, I got to get my this or my that. There's a player, I'm not going to say his name, there's a player in town, went and spoke to a team. He's sitting in front of me. He's now in the NFL. Looked down at him and said, why is it you always put on social about how you're being slept on when your GPA is below 2? Why is that? Then you just kind of look down at the ground like, I just don't care. You want to brag up about how great you are at football. It's not happening in the classroom. So is the benefit of football the working out, the getting up at 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m., iron sharpens iron. You're in the weight room. One day you're benching 100. 6 months later, you're benching 180 and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. And you have to overcome adversity. It's raining. They were throwing stuff at the bus. You're on the road. You're down 35-10 and you come back and win 36-35. You kick the game-winning field goal or you miss the game-winning field goal. Those are life lessons. That is the beauty of sport. Does the sport of football have some issues? Sure. People that underestimate the concussion stuff, that's a criminal. When I hear of a kid that has 4, 5, 6 concussions and they're still playing, shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen. The outside influences of, hey man, hey Mark, get over here. Hey man, your kid's pretty good. Oh yeah, hey, here's my card, or here's this, or here's that. Well, let's get this transfer portal going. Let's find some money in a collective. It's happening at the high school level now, Mark. Collectives at the high school level. And they can spot a kid. When I see that an 8th grader has an offer to go to a university, the collective's already gotten a hold of them. And what is the family going to say? Is the family going to say, oh, we're not interested? Of course they're interested. So, there's a give and take. It's like anything.
So where does Arizona high school football go? Let's say the explosion for me has been in the last 15 years. Where's it go in the next 15? Where are we headed, Brad? Looking at your crystal ball. Is there one back there?
I don't know if I have a crystal ball. I think, Mark, I think there's going to become more of a push for club football, the IMG approach, because there's too many high schools that don't trust or believe in the AIA. And I don't agree with those people. I think the AIA does the best job that they can do, but they want to be able to practice when they practice. They want to be able to schedule when they schedule. They want to be, and when I hear from coaches, well, all they do is do the scheduling and the referees, and we can do that. We can run our own leagues. Then you're just an academy. Look at what's happened in basketball. Look at what's happened in high school basketball. Look at what's happened in high school soccer. High school soccer is almost obsolete to the point where I'm hearing that it may get canceled because everybody's just going to club. So there's going to be people trying to do club football. That's going to happen. That's already been attempted. The silly season, the underwear Olympics of 7-on-7, which means absolutely nothing, but it's a money maker, it's a money grab. That's going to continue, and that may morph into something more. I think in the next 10 to 15 years, that's going to be a space. When a player dies on the field, I'm not being an alarmist, but when it happens and it becomes a big story, there's going to be people that will say, we have to take a step back. When a player, is there bigger, stronger, faster? You've been on the field Sundays, it's car crashes. It's car crashes over and over and over. It's spinal cord injuries. And this is nothing new. So you have to look at the health of the game. And the NFL is trying to do the best they can to grow it by having women in flag football and flag football leagues. Flag football may become more prominent. Heck, it's in the Olympics coming up. So I think if you look at the crystal ball of it, is it just a bunch of club coaches in their 20s and 30s that are runners for agents with teams that are stacked to try to be a feeder system for colleges? That's where it's going.
As far as colleges go, what did you make of ASU's debut against Wyoming?
So you have to give it context, and context is Arizona State, much like U of A's last season under Kevin Sumlin when they got boat raced 70-7. U of A was the worst program in America. They were. Arizona State, probably right there is the worst program in America that Kenny inherited. Yet always something university under siege. The cheating was well known. The scandal was well known. Those people that say, well, if we hadn't been dimed out, we would have had Jaden Daniels. We had Brandon Ayuk. We look at all the guys. We had Ricky Pearsall. We had Johnny Wilson, and on and on and on and on. Yeah, but you got caught cheating. Okay, just so we're really clear about this. And AP left the thing in a mess, and so on and so forth. So Kenny inherited, Mark, the worst of the worst. And add to that, the former athletic director and the president, who I still don't believe really cares that much about sports, decide a couple weeks before the season to just walk in one morning and say, oh, by the way, you guys aren't bowl eligible. So now Kenny's got to inherit that. Kenny is a first-year coach. I did something with Kenny, and I said to him at his 100-day mark, I always put coaches on after 100 days. I said, what is it you've learned in the first 100 days? He holds up a water bottle. He said that it takes 5 signatures here at ASU for me to get this water bottle ordered, and 3 of the people don't even work here anymore. Okay? So when you have that kind of nonsense going on behind the scenes, and it's nonsense, and when you have an athletic director that said a year and a half earlier, we don't believe in NIL. What? And And then it's just one story after the next, and it's AP, and it's the NCAA investigating, and it's people just retiring or leaving. I think what Graham has done here in the early going has been smart. He's brought in the broom. There were some people there that were on the points and pension plan. They got their points for teaching, and they're getting their pension, and they're not doing anything. I would run into people that say, I won't say the name of the player, yeah, we can't even recruit him because, we don't have enough money in NIL. Well, then you should be fired. You should be fired because you're an assistant coach at Arizona State University, and you don't believe that you can even compete. Get out. Get out. So there was a loser's mentality over there for years. And Kenny has been smart, and he's tried to figure it out. And I think he's doing a good job of figuring it out. When I see Kenny and talk with him, it reminds me of Bruce Pearl a little bit. And Bruce was with him at Auburn. Bruce Pearl's salesman, Kenny's salesman. Earlier this week, I show up at Kenny's deal and say, hey, so your time at Auburn and the SEC coming to town. And he just goes full throat for 3 minutes saying, yeah, this could be like that. There's no Diamondbacks, there's no Suns, there's no this, there's no that. So I love what he's all about. He made a couple mistakes with his coaching staff last year that really put him over a barrel early on, moved on from him. You can't sit here and say, oh man, what do we do? No. So Marcus Arroyo's come in. I thought the offense in game one was pretty good. That's not a bad Wyoming team, Mark. And if you look at where they're headed, just as this is going to run before they play, I think this is going to run before they play. I shouldn't speak for you.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, so
might as run the whole. This might as be the whole show. This is great stuff.
Yeah. So it's Kenny's going to take his team against Mississippi State on Saturday night. It's the SEC coming to town. Most fans here don't know the SEC. Not ripping on the fans. It's just not our jam here in Arizona. We can go do lots of things. We can go look at the Cardinals opener against Buffalo. The Diamondbacks, they're going to come home and meet Milwaukee. They're just hanging on by a thread for the playoffs. And so Kenny's going to take on an SEC team. If he beats that SEC team at home, it's going to cause a huge buzz. He has a student section excited and fired up. I kind of look at that and say, the students should be there anyways. It's the largest university in the country. So, there's going to be enough there. Add to that the following Thursday. So 8 days from now, as you and I are sitting here talking, he plays at Texas State. That game's on ESPN. We know this about ESPN. Whether I like some of the stuff, don't like some of their stuff, they're going to promote it. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's Arizona State, Arizona State, Arizona State, Arizona State. And they go to Texas State. Texas State is an unknown in a lot of people's minds. My understanding is it's a president that's committed to football. It's an AD that's committed to football. This isn't going to be a pushover. They're all about football, Texas State. If you win that game, you're 3-0. And people have said, oh, they're the worst program in the Big 12. That may well be true as the season progresses. But where Arizona State is right now, if they go to any bowl game this year, as any bowl game, I don't care if it's the Independence Bowl, don't care. It could be the Downtown Bowl that the Fiesta Bowl puts on. It doesn't matter. If they go to any bowl this year, after as bad as this situation has been, there's hope. There's promise. I still reservation because I don't know about the president at Arizona State University if he's truly committed to winning. Known Dr. Crow a long time. Can't tell me what's gone on here in the last 4 years or how the activity center is still sitting there. Desert Financial Arena is still sitting there in disrepair. I don't think he cares. And I don't think he cares when he gets criticized. So he'd see this, he'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, Cesmat, click. It's fine. Actions speak louder than words. And at Arizona State, I don't want to hear any of the sleeping giant stuff. They've been sleeping all right. They haven't been a giant. And I think that they can bounce back and that this program is headed in the right direction. The high school coaches alone here in town have been raving about what they've seen. This whole, oh, we have to close the borders, different time now. A kid, if you say, hey, Mark McLuhan, we think what position did you play, Mark?
Flanker. Do they still have flankers?
He was a flanker. He was Roger Carr back in the day. Okay, so we have in our NIL pool $12 million, and we have for a flanker $400,000. And Oregon has $100,000. And USC has $180,000. We're going to go all day long. You're going to stay home. So this whole how it used to be, like I used to get offensive linemen from Arizona State not staying here because in high school, what do you do every morning? You get up, it's 115 degrees, and then you go to Eugene, or you go to Champaign-Urbana, or you go wherever. Hey man, I think I'm going to leave. And then they usually come back. Well, now it's going to totally be dependent on how much. And so that's a completely different way of recruiting. I think Kenny's good at it. So I'm bullish on him. I'm bullish on what Coach Brennan's doing in Tucson. I mean, this is a great time for us in the state. New coach up at NAU. Hopefully they get that thing straightened out. But I think from a football fan standpoint, college football, Mark, the college football playoff is 1,000 times more interesting to me than anything going on in the NFL in September and October. I don't need September and October NFL football. College football is... CFP's just invigorated some life into the whole deal.
Could Tedero McMillan get your Heisman vote?
No. I would say there's a player over Colorado. If you don't leave the field except for 2 plays and you're making that big of an impact, and I am a Heisman voter, and we're not supposed to say who we're going to vote for, but right now I wouldn't give it to him. Now he's got a chance. Next week, Kansas State, ESPN. Following week, Utah. Those are 2 signature games. Those are 2 games where you can put yourself out there on the map. But you know this, it's like when Christian McCaffrey was at Stanford. Nobody watched their games. It was late at night. Nobody saw him. He should have won. They're going to see Carson Beck all season long at Georgia. They're going to say, oh my gosh, Carson Beck's the greatest this, the greatest that. Oh my gosh, he's amazing. Because those guys in the East Coast aren't going to watch T-Mac. They're not going to watch U of A on a 7:30 kick against NAU this week. Not happening.
Brad, you can come talk to our booster club at Arizona's Family Sports anytime.
Hey man, I'm an alum. I am an alum of Arizona Family Sports. So, I'm on it. 6 o'clock, 11:30, 11 o'clock. I don't know. We got a bunch of airings, bunch of shows. But you do great work over there. Your staff does great. Gus is a Hall of Famer. I have to give him a shout out to the cameramen because they never get the shout outs that they deserve, in my opinion. He's a Hall of Famer, and I appreciate your time.
He's a force of nature, as are you. Thank you so much, and let's do this again. This is fun.
Whenever you want.